Hey, everybody. So today I am going to follow up, continue on what we were talking about yesterday, and about congruence and alignment. And what we're going to focus on today is how to create from a vision. So I want to cover this kind of quickly, but when you create from reactivity, most of the time in life we create, and not that we create, we are creating because everything we do has an effect that brings something into being in our emotions and our awareness and our relationships and our life. That's both open and covert, both practically and energetically and spiritually. But most of the time we're reacting. And most of the time, what we're reacting to is the feeling that we're doing something wrong, or the feeling that something that's happening is wrong, like it shouldn't be this way, or the feeling that we need something and we don't have what we need, or we might not get what we need, or or just plain fear, overt fear. So when any of those things are present in our system, whether it's conscious or whether it's just the unconscious programs that are running, we're going to be in reaction mode. And what happens when you're in reaction mode is you almost always create more of what you really don't want. So I've mentioned this before, but when we respond, when we make a decision, when we make a choice, when we take action out of fear, which I'll say more about that in a second, but when we take action out of fear, generally we create what we don't want, what we're afraid of, and so in some way or another. So one of the important things, one of the very important things in creating from a vision is that you want to have your vision has to move you out of reactivity, which means it has to be compelling. It has to bring you to a state of desire, of like, what is desire? I always like to use the example of thinking of your favorite food. When you think of your favorite food, what you feel is desire. It's not really hard to figure it out. You might start to salivate. You might start to think about where you can get that food. Generally, thinking about your favorite food doesn't make you feel sad and depressed. It doesn't make you feel constricted, needy, lonely. So it's pretty easy to identify the vibrational or emotional difference between reactivity and co-creativity, creating from a vision. So the core of creating from a vision is always desire. So we're not going to have time to go deeply into this right now, but I'll give you the basic blueprint here. So when you want to know whether you're in reactivity, like I say on the left side of the chart, the gullus experience, the exile experience. So you're going to, as I said, either experience fear, need, should, or don't want. I'll explain more about this in a moment. When you're on the Geula side of the chart, the redemption side of the chart, co-creating from a vision, you're going to feel desire. You're going to feel some level of passion. So you're still going to want what you want. That goes with the territory, obviously. But it's going to be from a place of connecting, of expansion, of moving toward. Okay, so when you come up with a vision, take some example. We'll do this really quickly right now. Think of something. If you want, you can close your eyes. Think of something in your life that you really want, whether it's a change in a relationship, whether it's a change in your way of being, in your wellness, in your finances, and your empowerment, something you want to create, something you want to accomplish that's been in your way, that's been actually been too far out of your reach for a long time, or something that you want to stop that you can't seem to stop. Whatever it is, just think of it. What do you want? And I would like you to do this closed eyes. What do you want? So think about what you want, identify what you want, and keep your eyes closed. And now I'm going to ask you, what feeling do you have in your body as you think about this? Are you feeling constricted or expanded? Do you feel like your body is literally swaying forward toward that thing you're thinking about? Or do you feel a sense of shrinking into yourself, of sadness or loneliness or failure or shame or judgment? So based on this, and again, we're not going to elaborate too deeply right now because I want to get through some core principles and not keep you too long. But based on that feeling, whether it's expansive, excited, or motivated, flowing, clear, a leaning toward, or whether it's a shrinking into the self. That can, we all have this feeling a lot, you know, when we have anxiety, when we're worried about something, when we think that something's not the way it's supposed to be. So these are two feelings that all humans have experience with. And often on a daily basis, we might switch between the two. Actually, most of us live on the left side. Most of us live on the gullus side way too much of the time. So we really want to work to change that. So that's how you can identify where you are. Now, if you have a feeling of shrinking, if you're feeling a need, a fear, a don't want, or a should, all of that actually comes down to fear, because when we feel that we're not as we should be, or what we should be, or something isn't the way it should be, what we feel is fear. We might feel other things as well, but we are afraid that things aren't right, that we're not right, that there's something wrong with us. When we feel we need something, the fear is, what if I don't have it? And sometimes there's not even a good answer to that. Sometimes what we feel we need, there isn't even any real consequence to not having it, but it still feels like that. Still, we go into a state of fear when we're in a state of need. We're in a resonance of need. I don't want, like, I don't want to have to struggle. I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want to. That's also just another version of the same. There's a resonance of fear underlying all of those. And I will tell you, fear and love are the two core movements according to Kabbalah. Love is a movement towards something, of being drawn towards something. And fear is being repelled away from it, constricting and shrinking away from it, which also these are connected with pleasure and pain. So as I've said, I don't know if you've heard me say it, but if you've heard me talk about it, you might have heard me talk about this concept of davar v'hipucho, that the thing and its opposite, that everything that exists in the universe is made up of two sides, like two sides of a coin. You have heads and tails. You have light and dark, good and evil, like, don't like, have, don't have. Agree, don't agree. So the principle is that underneath anything from the fear side of the equation is the opposite. So when you're in a state, when you're thinking about something you don't want, underneath that is always something that you do want. When you're operating from the left side of the chart, as I say, I don't have the chart in front of me now, maybe you haven't seen the chart, but nevertheless, when you're opposite, let's say when you're operating from the reactive part of you, from the gullus programming, so underneath that, the flip side of that is the desire, the co-creative programming. The soul functions like this also. The soul takes pleasure from certain things, and it takes pain, it experiences pain from the absence of those things. So the relationship with the thing is consistent, but how from which perspective you're experiencing that relationship with that thing that you want, which that thing that gives you pleasure, that's something that can be worked with. That's has to do with the consciousness mostly, and then the emotions, but mostly your consciousness in this case. Okay, so what you want, what your soul wants, you want intrinsically gives you pleasure. And what gives you pleasure, you intrinsically want. So that's always there underneath anything that has your attention, anything that, you know, agitates you, whether it's desire or need, should, fear, don't want. So that's the first thing. Learn to identify. When you think about this thing, and you see that if you see that you're in a constricted, reactive state, I want you to close your eyes again. We'll just do this just briefly. If this thing that you don't want completely cleared up, or if this need was totally fulfilled, or if this should, you know, was either like you were as you should be, or it didn't matter, you know, you didn't have to be that way, whatever it is. So what would be possible? What would change for you? What would you feel instead? Why is this important to you? What's going to happen if this gets resolved? What's going to open up for you? What will become possible? Who will you be then? What will you do? So if you ask yourself these questions, these kinds of questions in any situation, you will come, sometimes you need a little coaching, but you will inevitably eventually come to the place of the desire, because the desire is there. That's the point I want to bring out. The passion is there. It might not look exactly the same. Like, for example, if you don't want to be poor, You can ask yourself, what would happen if you had a lot of abundant wealth, as much as you want? So you might answer me, I wouldn't have to work so hard. Well, what would happen if you wouldn't have to work so hard? What would be available for you then? Well, then I could actually take a deep breath and start to enjoy life. Okay, what would you do if you could enjoy life? Well, I'd spend more time with my friends. I'd travel. What would you like if you were traveling? I just feel free. I feel like life is full of excitement. Like there's so much possibility here. So then you see, even making up this example, I'm starting to feel the energy shifting in me, talking about this concept of not having enough. So you can see that underneath, not in this particular case, doesn't have to look the same for everyone. But in this particular example, not wanting to be in scarcity equates to freedom and connection and presence and adventure and possibility. So then what you want is freedom, adventure, possibility, which means that everything you do in the area of working on abundance has to be from that place of freedom and adventure and possibility. And the work is to stay in that place. So to create the vision will be made up of a few words, 1, 2, 3 words that really light you up, that are so deeply meaningful to you. And I would suggest that you spend some time meditating on this. Just ask yourself the questions that I suggested here or similar ones, and then come up with when you finally feel like, yes, we did the word exercise several days ago, that when you feel that feeling of yes, then you write down the words that feel the most meaningful to you, that the states of being that you want to live in. Like, what will you get if your vision is fulfilled? What will you feel? What will you experience? Who will you be able to be? What will you be able to accomplish, to contribute, to create? And that's going to be, you'll encapsulate that in a short, few words or, a little phrase, and that will be your vision. So here, I just want to give you, I already explained that a vision cannot come from a need, a should, a don't want, or a fear, because that causes you to constrict. The soul constricts, your mind will constrict. You'll start to feel like, I don't have any solutions, even fewer solutions. It's like a crunching, losing all space and possibility. Your heart will constrict, like, I don't know what that feeling of being trapped, that feeling of having no space to move. It's just programming. It's just the way the system's designed to work. So you want to become a master in shifting to the desire, because when you feel a desire, not a don't want, not a fear, but a desire. Think about your favorite food. Everything lights up. Your soul, like a snail, I like to think of it as, when on the reactive side, the Gullah side, like the snail goes back into the shell. But on the Geula side, on the co-creative vision side, it comes right out and starts to move forward. No fear, just light. Just, I want that. Not, I want that. I want that. And both, remember, I'm going to say this again because it's so important. Both of these states exist in you right now. It's not like you have to acquire something from the outside. It's right there. Like the sun is always shining above the clouds. But you got to move the clouds. Okay, so the other thing, there's just one other thing I want to say about this, and that is that there are certain rules of what I call a Geula vision, a soul-based vision. So people do ask a lot, how do I know if something is coming from my soul, like if a desire is coming from my soul, or if it's coming from, someplace that's not as holy. So my answer is anything that you want, in some way your soul wants. Nothing that you could consciously desire isn't rooted in the soul. The soul's power of pleasure is what feeds all desire, but it can be very distorted. So we want to uncover the pure level of desire, which is always connected with the soul in a non-distorted way. So how do we do that? First of all, as I said, step into the vision, clear away the clouds. And then what you want to know is there are certain rules. So I'm going to tell you the rules now. Rule number 1, it has to be a win-win. In other words, it's not a soul-based desire to want to see someone fail in their business because they, weren't nice to you. Something that when you want something that is negative, that brings more negativity into the world, that's not a soul-based desire. Now, not that it's relevant to here, but there's a distinction between appropriate boundaries and wanting something negative for someone else. So it is completely, this does not mean that you have to always be nice when someone is taking advantage, or when, you know, when there's abuse or when there's violence or whatever it is, whether that's individual or national or whatever. But nevertheless, when it's coming to a vision, it always has to be a win-win. Like when you feel possibility, when you feel open-hearted, when you feel abundant, what happens to the people around you? What do they get to feel from you? And usually it's a lot of the same. So it has to be a win-win. It has to be able to be achieved independent of outside circumstances. Why is that? So outside circumstances, I want to, you know, I desire to be a public speaker, to be up on the stage and, you know, and influencing people, but I don't have the education, or I don't have the opportunities, I don't have an agent, whatever it is that we might say to ourselves. I desire to feel love, but I'm not in a good relationship. So whenever we put our souls, the soul is experiencing the pleasure of the desire right now. Like when you think about your favorite food, you can feel the pleasure of it. Yes, the pleasure is not complete till you eat it, but you're operating from the pleasure. What's driving you toward the food is the pleasure, not the scarcity. I hope this is clear. So the same thing with anything. If anything that you want very much is dependent on outside circumstances to be fulfilled, then you're in a state of need. What if it's not there? And then you're in a state of fear, right? And you don't want to be like without support. So that's also a don't want. So as soon as you are dependent on outside circumstances, you are going to be on the left side. You're going to be on the gullus side of the chart. So it has to be something that is independent of outside circumstances. And last but not least, it has to be able to be experienced now. In other words, we're talking about a vision that comes from your soul. Your soul's experiencing that now. What you want to do is to connect to it in your consciousness, in your emotions, in your thoughts, speech, and action, the garments of the soul. And that's when you're in business, empowered, and co-creating. So it has to be able to be start with a state of being that you activate within you. It's already there, like I keep saying. Everything is there with its opposite. If you desire it, it's already there. Once you open it to its pure state, then, you know, it's right there. But you have to reveal it. It has to be revealed. It has to be activated. It has to be brought out. And sometimes, not sometimes, almost all the time, when we're talking about something major, usually the things that we need to work on are pretty major, because if they weren't that hard, if they were easy to have, if you want something and it was easy to accomplish, you probably would have accomplished it already. So what happens when we try to move toward bigger, more important vision-based goals? So we don't have the vessels for them. Again, if we had the vessels for those goals already, then we would already be on the way. So what happens is we will find ourselves in the process of manifesting our goal getting derailed. And every time you get derailed, you're going to automatically be thrown over to the reactive side of the reactive program, reactive side of the chart, like I say. And at that point, you're going to want to dig in again. You're going to want to refresh your vision, because we can start from that, the activated vision. We usually do, right? We're usually very enthusiastic when we start something, because we can feel the goal, we can feel the pleasure of the goal fulfilled. But in actually actualizing and manifesting that goal in the physical realm, it needs the vessels. This is what I was talking about yesterday, I think the day before as well. So the derailment is always on behalf of taking a step back, reconnecting with the vision on a deeper level, and shifting something in your being so that whatever it is that derailed you now will not derail you. This can happen many, many times in pursuit of something that you truly desire, and that, by the way, you are truly here to manifest. So the fact that something takes time, the fact that you get derailed over and over again, the fact that you feel discouraged and constricted and lonely and ashamed and like there's a disempowered, you know, there's no way, that doesn't mean anything about what you can really accomplish. I hope this is clear. Now I wish I had brought the diagram, but never mind. So the point is, if you know that what you desire is already there as an experience inside your soul, you just have to keep revealing it. If you know that it's normal and inevitable to be derailed and find yourself reactive, find yourself constricted, because that reactivity, that constriction, whatever's causing that and however it shows up, is part of the darkness that you are here to transform. It's raw material, new vessels that will allow for the manifestation of your soul's desires. So when you know those things and you become masterful at making the switch and asking yourself those questions, when you know that you cannot get all the way to the goal, usually based on an initial activation of your desire, because you're going to flip back to the other side of the chart. You're going to be flipping back and forth. Usually when we flip to the reaction side, and then we have to work to get back to the vision side, but that's okay, because that's what we're here for. That's why you're here. And remember that anything, thank you, Charlotte, anything that you, Charlotte says it's clear, anything that you, now I forgot what I was going to say. Anything that you, never mind. Okay, so, oh, yeah, anything that you are here to work on, anything that God arranges things in a very interesting way, in a very cool way, amazing way, actually. That the things that you are here to rectify are cosmic. So as you are working on them, as you're turning a certain bit of darkness to light, as you're creating new vessels for something, as you're digging more into your soul's desire, this is affecting the world. First of all, affecting you, and you're a complete world as an individual. It's affecting your relationships. It's going to affect what you produce. It's going to affect the energy that you put out into the world, but it also affects the world on a spiritual level. Because on the deepest level of soul, we're all one. We started out as one, Adam, Eve. We're all cells of that cosmic body. We're still all pieces of the central soul in each generation. So as we do the work, like is true in physical healing and energy healing, let's say homeopathy, or it's a principle of all energetic healing, that when you can find certain parts of the body or certain cells or organs that are vibrating correctly, and you can give those strength, that positive vibration, that healthy, balanced, harmonious vibration will spread throughout your system. So the same here with the cosmic system. The more one of us gets healthy, the more all of us will get healthy. And when I say healthy, I don't just mean physical health. I mean aligned. I mean lights and vessels. I mean operating from our true soul's desire. Guess what else? Your soul's true desires, just in this simple sense: abundance, freedom, possibility, love, empowerment, connection, beauty. Those are part of your purpose. So those are things God wants to manifest. The manifesting unit. Okay, take care, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Lots of love.